This is Kevin Conroy, and I am the goddamn Batman.
You've just jumped inside the pull bag. Join TFG1 Mike and the rest of the comic crew here at the GCRN as they make their great escape into comics. From DC, Marvel, and Image to IDW, Boom Studios, and Zenescope, we have everything right here. We cover things like Transformers, He-Man, superheroes, TMNT, and Radiant Black. Yeah, we have all that and so much more. It's all inside the pull bag here on the Geekcast Radio Network. So, without further ado, it's time to talk about the comics we're reading right now, here inside the pull bag.
Hello and welcome to the pull bag. This is episode 409. I am, of course, TFG and Mike. Joining me for the first time is Donovan Morgan Grant. Hello, sir.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going. Sometimes I wish it would stop, but it's going. And we are here to do another Origins episode. We just finished up Autobotly April here inside the pull bag, where Steve Megatron and I talked about 2 volumes of Transformers comics from IDW. We also talked about Beast Wars number 3, I think it was. So yes, we are finishing off this month with an Origins episode. And for those that don't know Donovan, I will hopefully link this in the show notes, folks. He did a 5-hour podcast with Ian Wilson. It was you, Ian, and who else was on there?
Is this a Marvel one? Chris Johnson.
Yeah. 5 hours of going through the entirety of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
The agony and the ecstasy.
Yeah, kind of. That's how Marvel does it. They do it better than DC ever could.
That was I think it was Earth to 1100. I think
you're right. Yeah, Earth2.net, the show, episode 1100. Yep. All right, and we're here to get Donovan's comic reading origins. And first question is: did you grow up reading comics, and at what age did you first remember reading or noticing comics?
I hear the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire tension theme in the background. I did grow up reading comic books. I don't know if I can pin down precisely the exact age, although the first comic I can see in my mind's eye that I remembered, I should probably find out the exact issue of this, but it was from the original run of the Batman Adventures, which was, the comic book. I had to say adaptation, but it was, the animated comics in the style of Batman the Animated Series. Mm-hmm. And it was within the first 10 issues, it was the first one with Poison Ivy on the cover. I think she's holding Batman. It's implied that Batman's under her control. That's the first comic I remember seeing. But ever since I was in grade school, and I was introduced to Spider-Man through the Clone Saga. I would probably say about 5 years old, I was introduced to comics, and definitely pretty much since I started grade school, I had been reading them, and I started buying them on the regular when I was 13, but pretty much all my life I've been reading comics for about 25 years.
Very cool, very cool. As a kid, was there a parent or a friend who just, and I frame this way because I just think it's funny, who just said, "Here, kid, read this, go away, you bother me," kind of thing? Was there, who was it that got you into comics, or was it just something you noticed naturally?
So, my father read comics when he was younger, and he was very much. He kind of grew up in the 70s. He would be reading the 70s comics. He would read Luke Cage. He would read Black Panther. He would read Captain America. He had an old issue of Captain America, and again, I should probably figure out the issue of this. But it's on the cover. It's a John Romita Sr. cover with Cap, the Falcon, and the Black Panther. And I think it's called Blitzkrieg. I think it's also an image on one of the old school trades. He apparently lost his entire comic book collection to one of his brothers in a tennis game. So,
oh wow,
I know that was an early lesson. But I would say that I probably got into comics because I was watching a lot of comic book media. On the one hand, I remember I was watching Batman the Animated Series during its first run, but I would also watch old reruns of the Batman 60s show, and not really as a young person honestly reconcile the two as they're both Batman to me. Like I couldn't even tell you Robin's costume in the cartoon and in the live action show at the time because it was just like the same thing. And interest in that just led me to interest in like the toys and the other characters. So when I saw comic books, it was a very slipstream gateway, and that also helped me get a kickstart on reading. I was always a very voracious reader when I was younger, and comic books definitely started that out.
Very cool. When you were a kid, which characters were your favorites?
Batman and Spider-Man. Batman for the aforementioned reason of the animated series and the 60s show, and he's kind of just catapulted to being my top favorite. And Spider-Man because I remember the KB toys coming out in anticipation for the 94 animated cartoon series on Fox Kids, and I remember when that first came out in 1994.
They don't look like they're headed for night school. It's not nice to rob jewelry stores in Mr. Spider-Man's neighborhood. Can you say, I'm going to jail?
Yeah, they were always my favorite. I remember thinking that Spider-Man was a new character at the time, not knowing that he'd been around for like 30 years at the time.
Yeah.
But I watched the 90s show all the way through and I own all the Batman animated series stuff, so those were my favorites as a kid, and they remain my favorites today.
Mm-hmm. Age-old question. DC or Marvel?
Is there a right or wrong answer to this question?
Not in my opinion, because for me, I base it off of what characters I like, not what company I like. So if one company is doing something with a character that I like, sure, great, fine, whatever, Although, as I said a second ago, Marvel does the film universe 1,000 times better than DC ever could.
What do you mean? Yeah. So I've never been like a DC versus Marvel. I've never ever, because I've heard people say like, oh, Marvel's so much better than DC, like in terms of like the actual universes. Like that to me is like kid stuff. So I've never like, preferred one or the other. I will say that like oftentimes I prefer DC over Marvel because I'm more familiar with the DC characters. And it's ironic because DC Universe is always retconning itself and having all these universal time reboots, so it's harder to keep track of. But I'm more familiar with Batman and Superman and Green Arrow and other characters. Like on Marvel's side, I very much like Marvel, but like my favorite heroes are Spider-Man, it's Daredevil. I do like Black Panther. I do like Captain America, and I do like the X-Men. But I could not tell you. I'm not nearly as familiar or well read in the Marvel universe as I am DC. I've read more than the average bear, but like I like both. I know more of DC than I do Marvel, but I certainly don't prefer one or the other.
Mm-hmm. What other publishers do you enjoy reading?
There was one year where I threw my hands up in the air and said, all right, you know what? I'm going to try new comics. I'm not going to read superhero comics. And I remember picking up like Irredeemable. I remember picking up like Runaways, which is still Marvel. And I remember picking up Chew from John Layman and Rob Gilroy from Image. And Chew was the one that I stayed on to like all throughout its entire run from Image. So that's probably the one that counts the most. Otherwise, I like manga. That was kind of my teenage interest. That's kind of continued as I've gotten older. My favorite manga include Death Note, Hajime no Ippo. Between my brother and I, we own the entire Dragon Ball series if we don't count Super. So yeah, if manga counts, that would be it. Otherwise, technically Image because I own the entire series of Chew.
Very cool, very cool. Yeah, we actually covered the first 2 volumes of that on the podcast years ago now, and I've wanted to go back to it. I just never have found the time to.
Nice. It was a really fun series.
Yeah, it was. It's one of those, this is what this is going to be kind of things.
Yeah, with the violence and everything.
Not necessarily the violence, just the cannibalism. I mean. Okay, print or digital, which one, both, either, or, and why?
I mean, digital's easier to talk about online.
Go web, go!
Like I recently was reading like the death of Clark Kent storyline, and I was posting images of it on Twitter, and I was posting it like I had the trade physically in my hand, so the images don't come up better. But so I would say both, because I do enjoy reading it online and then discussing it, but also I enjoy the collection aspect. I enjoy, creating a library of my collection. I enjoy, it's the original experience of kind of going through stories. It feels more like yours rather than just you're participating in a thing. It feels more, you have more ownership over reading. But I will say both, because I'm a spineless coward.
Yeah. Yeah, I started out in print, and the listeners will have heard this a million times before, so sorry, listeners, I repeat myself often. I went to read, I think it was Punisher. It was one of the big Punisher books. Might have been Punisher Max. I don't remember off the top of my head, but the damn thing was 12 issues. It was so thick. I was not falling asleep because I was bored with the story. I was falling asleep from having to hold it in my hand. And like the next week, I found Comixology, and I'm just like, screw print. I'm done.
Never look back.
I kind of haven't. I mean, I have some comics scattered here and there, but I don't have enough room for, let alone one long box, let alone 50 of them, so
right.
I have nobody to pass them on to, so it's not like I really need to have a comic book collection. It's bad enough I have to figure out who I'm going to give my Funko Pops to when I die. Anyway. Alright, who are some of your favorite comics writers and why?
Well, for the first person that popped in my head was Denny O'Neil. I find a lot of his 70s work very fun. They're very energetic. They try an awful lot hard, and they often miss the mark. But I enjoy the energy of his 70s Batman, his Green Lantern, Green Arrow run. I've read some of his Dead Man stuff, and it's fun. He is a far different writer in the 80s and 90s. He's much better. His question work is amazing. His Batman work is very strong. Batman Venom is a favorite story of mine. And I really enjoy his run his editorial run of Batman titles. To a related extent, Chuck Dixon, all of his stuff in the 90s I really enjoyed. John Michael, is it James Straczynski? Yeah, John Michael Straczynski, is that his name?
Yeah, I think so.
Straczynski's run on Amazing Spider-Man I really like. I know that's kind of a hot take opinion, but that is my favorite run of the character. But you also have classic runs like J.M.D. Mateus, Roger Stern, Jerry Conway, Mark Waid. I love Mark Waid's Daredevil run. And I think Mark Waid in general is a very, very strong writer. I really like Kingdom Come, obviously. Kurt Busiek for both Marvels and Untold Tales of Spider-Man. I'm like a lot of Nick Spencer's stuff currently on ASM. I've read his Falcon his Sam Wilson Captain America run. John Ridley, who's currently writing the other history of the DC universe, which I think is the best DC title easily since the golden age era of the 80s. He's killing it on that title. I'm enjoying James Tynion right now. Paul Dini, whenever he writes comics, he's really good. Let's see. I'm looking over my collection actually. Because some artists, some writers, I enjoy their runs on some titles, but not consistent on other titles. So I'm trying to see who do I enjoy most consistently. And that might be the ones I want to mention as of now. It's like, I love Frank Miller's work on Daredevil, but do I love Frank Miller's work on a lot of other things? I don't know. So I'll probably quit while I'm ahead. Yeah.
Oh boy, heaven forbid we say anything bad about the godlike Frank Miller. All I'll say is the only time, and I want to do more of this on this show, but I just haven't. The only time we have ever covered Superman in the 8 years this podcast has been online is Superman Unchained, or whatever the Black Label thing was with Miller. And I'm just like, by the second issue, I'm like, God, I don't want to read this. And then I read the solicitation for the third issue, and I'm like, I thought this was a Superman origin story, not a Batman meets Superman origin story. Whatever.
Oh yeah, I remember that. It was like Superman Year 1 or something.
Yeah, that's what it is. Superman Year. Yes, that's not Unchained. I'm sorry, that's a different, completely different. Superman Unchained is a completely different title. Superman Year 1. That's what it was for DC Black Label. What defines a good story to you?
I would say strong plots that challenge strong characters, because you can have you have fun characters being boring plots, and you can have good plots that follow characters you don't care about. Peter Parker's a great character, but there are times in where he's like fighting somebody. It's like, it's an average story. Who cares? If he's in a really strong story or a really challenging story, then that character is augmented by that strong plot. Same with everybody. You can make great characters out of great stories. Like great plots make great characters, I think. But also great characters augment great plots. Like the character, I think the Vigilante. I think he first appeared in the New Teen Titans, but he spun off into his own title, and that character became very, very strong. But the idea of him as a character, as a Vigilante, kind of precipitated, or kind of like foreshadowed the idea of really good plots that you can apply to him, and it was kind of a reciprocal relationship between that character and that kind of stories about a character who was essentially a former politician who became a vigilante, and it ends up having a very strong end. So, I would say, did I even answer the question? I'm sorry. Strong plots inform strong characters, I think.
What does a story have to draw you in? So now in the world of the internet, we can always look at solicitations and everything else, but like when you go into the comic shop, you may know what you're going to get, but you may see something that you may want to just thumb through the first couple of pages. What does a story have to have for you to want to continue to be drawn into it?
You know what? What does it have to have? It has to kind of have that first issue hook or that first page hook. When you're reading any story, there is just an automatic understanding of how storytelling works. You have the beginning, the middle, and then the introductory. Like the mystery box and the MacGuffin or what have you, and that's fine. If something upsets your expectations and flips your interest that way in terms of just pure, I don't want to say nightmare fuel, but just pure stakes, then that's what gets me. Like for instance, the first issue of Static, back in the Milestone comics, you see him already in action, although you know that he's new at what he's doing. You see how he's timing his the time it takes for him to get home from an adventure, to talk on the phone. You see him going through school, understanding that he has a secret identity, and you're learning more about him while it's not adhering to the traditional start, middle, and end storytelling. And then you learn his origin in issue 2. But I thought that was a very strong way to introduce a character without it feeling totally redundant. And so that's an example I think hooks me in.
Very cool, very cool. Who are some of your favorite comic artists?
I really do like Bruce Timm, and I know that he's not strictly a comic artist, but he's done comics before. I really enjoy a lot of his personal illustrated work. I got to that a lot when I was in college. I think his coloring is often underrated, and he just won. I mean, even I think all the great artists hit their peak. Mm-hmm. But he's one that I really enjoy, honestly, and not just for his animated work. Similarly, John Romita Jr. I was actually talking about him on Twitter today, but I very much enjoy his ASM. I very much enjoy his kind of blocky style in the 90s era. I know it's not everybody's taste, but I do. When he's on, he's really on. Of course, his father, John Romita Sr., Norm Brayfogle, who passed away a few years, was a great illustrative artist, especially on Batman. I really enjoy Tom Grummett. I really enjoyed Mike Ringo, who's also no longer with us. Rags Morales, Eddie Barrows, Ivan Reis, Chris Samney recently, Darwin Cook, God rest. Hope I'm not naming any obvious names. I mean, of course, I like Alex Ross.
I don't think you are, because even though I know most of these names, I'm like, wow, this is why I like the new 25 question format I have, because half the time, majority of the time, I don't offer the questions to people. So basically, between you and Desmond Reddick, I now have to edit out breaths and gut punches, because every question I've asked both of y'all in this lineup, Des was like, wait a minute, let me think about that.
Sorry about that.
No. It's cool. It's good. I mean, it's the thing. You don't know what the questions are, and the question may catch you off guard. What do you have a favorite non-superhero title?
Currently, or of all time? Does the timeline count?
No, doesn't matter. Whatever you want to say.
You know what? I will say the Comico or Comico, however you pronounce that company, their adaptation of Robotech the Macross Saga.
Mm-hmm.
I collected that, which is 36 issues. And it's literally an adaptation of every episode of Robotech, which is the American dubbing of Super Dimensional Fortress Macross. And I actually collected that series twice. I used to have 2 copies of every issue because I found them cheap. Because I really love that. That's one of my favorite Japanese series ever. And reading it and kind of understanding how they adapted the story and the different artists. And this is back again when I was in grade school.
Right.
I really dug that. And so I would actually, I really like Chew, but I would say that Robotech the Macross Saga is probably my favorite non-superhero series that I've ever read to completion.
Very cool. Very cool. What is your favorite run of a series? So, for example, Scott Snyder's New 52 Batman, you had Court of Owls, you had Death of the Family, you had Endgame. So that's what I mean when I say run of a series.
Favorite run? Boy. That is... Darn. God. I'll forget it out. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Favorite run of a series? Because do they from start to bottom, like from the start of their run until the very end?
Okay. Let's see. Frame it a different way. You have Batman that ran up until New 52. Okay, so basically the old school Batman.
Yes.
Not all the same writers wrote all of those issues. Is there a specific time? Is there a specific run? Is there a specific storyline within that series that you have a favorite for?
Okay, gotcha. I'll say Frank Miller's Daredevil. His original 80s Daredevil run it's like Daredevil 169 through 181, I believe. Or at least that's when he was doing straight writing duties. I know the last year Klaus Jensen was kind of doing story outlines, and I think that they're kind of teaming up on that. And and Miller only wrote the last issue of that run. But when Daredevil went on, or when Miller went from just being the penciler in Daredevil to the writer and artist, I think it's one of the greatest runs ever done. He introduced the hand, all this kind of martial arts stuff, but the storytelling became far more illustrative in how it was. He left a lot of it to the artwork. There's a lot of stories of just people walking into panel and walking into frame. There's that very famous shot of him bringing the Kingpin into Daredevil for the first time, and he's kind of just a big character. But the last couple of panels, he lights a cigarette lighter, or he lights a cigarette holder, and he becomes like a Frank Miller character. There's this great issue where Daredevil fights Elektra to prevent her from assassinating Ben Urich. And she beats the living crap out of him. He falls to a bear trap, and she stabs Ben Urich. There's this wonderful issue where he fights Bullseye at the bottom of a subway train, and he's exhausted, and Bullseye's lying on the train tracks, and Daredevil's like, I'm exhausted, I can't move. There's nothing I can do. He's going to die. Sorry, Bullseye. That you brought this on yourself. I hate you. And he's very, very slowly from panel to panel pulls him off of it. It's just so many classic issues that I don't know if comics will ever be that good again. You have Board Again later on, and you have other things, but like that run of comics is just like, man, I wish I was back. I wish I was alive back then when that was going on. But did anyone really know how good they had it back then? I'm not sure. So it's kind of like comic book history whenever I read that run. So I'll say that.
Very cool. Yeah, you're describing that and make me think of, so that's where the movie got the train scene from.
Oh, yeah, possibly.
Heaven forbid anybody reference the 2003 Daredevil movie. Oh, my God.
That one man can make a difference.
One man can make a difference, Michael.
What is one comic you can read over and over again, single issue or trade?
Single issue or trade? The ones that I have read over and over again. I will say the oh gosh, it actually came in and out of my brain. Nightfall. Nightfall is my favorite Batman crossover, and particularly in Part 1, Broken Bat, where it's just Batman scrambling across Gotham to recapture all the criminals broken out of Arkham Asylum. That's a great run. He fights some 90s villains like Amygdala and Mr. Zaz. He fights Firefly. He takes on Poison Ivy, the Scarecrow. And I really like how, you would think the premise is like, Batman comics, as usual, but because he's so tired, and the comics did a really good job of kind of leading up to him being exhausted for about a year, that there's one moment where he just kind of just ranks, okay, I brought 8 down, these guys are mostly second stringers, and I'm still wiped out. The really dangerous ones are still out on the loose. Joker, Riddler, Scarecrow. How can I beat them? And I know that Bane's did all this, so how can I beat him? And it's just like, I really like seeing that peek into his mind that like this isn't just a normal case. Of course, case is bat broken, and that leads into all the other stuff. But like the first Nightfall trade is easily one I return to often just for fun.
Yeah, it's really hard for me because before they put out the 25th anniversary editions of it, I bought the original 3 volumes on Comixology. And looking at the first volume, it's 634 pages. I'm thinking to myself, how can I cover that on this podcast without... Oh, God, it's just so... There is just so much to Nightfall. I'm like, how the hell do you cover a 634 page comic that isn't a 5-hour episode of a podcast? Oh, good Lord. All right. Now, we don't like getting negative, but there are some negative questions we do have to ask. Are there... Well, it's
Let's
just one of those things. Are there comics you avoid altogether?
Most stuff from Garth Ennis. I do like his Punisher Max stuff, but like usually speaking, his books are so mean spirited that's just why would I read those?
Right. Which that's kind of funny because it ties into the next question. Are there any comics in the past or currently that you wish you hadn't read them?
I don't think so. When I was 16, I read Volume 2, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and what Mr. Hyde does to the Invisible Man really messed me up when I read that. But as an adult, I don't know if there's anything that I would have regretted. There's bad stuff, but like even the bad stuff, what I read, so I have a point of reference as to like how I feel about them and how good they are or are not. So I'll say no.
How large or small is your physical comic book collection?
It's been a while since I took count. When I last counted, I know I had, and this is nothing. So many people have far greater counts than I do. But I know I had about 200, I think 250 trade paperbacks, and definitely over 1,000 single issues. And it's been about 6 or 7 years since I last took stock in re-upping that count. But that was my last. I have over 250 trades and probably over 1,100 single issues.
Wow, that's a lot of comics.
Yeah, dude. It's hard going to the comic shop because it's like well, I have everything, so there's not much for me to hunt.
That's why you start reading new stuff and waiting for the trade on that.
Exactly.
Okay, so this is like everybody is safe, but the house is on fire. What's the one comic you could never live without ever? What's the one comic you would run back into the burning house to save?
Oh, man. Ooh. Probably JMS's first trade of ASM, Amazing Spider-Man, the Coming Home trade, that first Moreland storyline, because I remember reading that when I was a teenager when it came out in single issues, and it just struck a chord with me. I really enjoyed it. It's my favorite story, and I mean I've read probably most of Spider-Man's whole. And so at least when it comes to Amazing Spider-Man, probably most of that publication. But that story is just a personal favorite of mine.
Very cool, very cool. What was the most money you spent on a comic or a comic item? Now, comic item could be like a replica of Green Lantern's ring or a Batarang or something you would get at a convention kind of thing.
Right. Most of the figures that I've spent at like Comic-Con have been like Japanese anime figures, and those are the most expensive ones. But I won't count those. I would probably say, and this was I believe it was a Christmas gift for my friend Stella. I think I got her the Absolute edition of Identity Crisis, and I think that's like $150. So I'll throw up that.
Very cool, very cool. Was there ever a moment when you were completely done with comics?
Ooh, no, not comics entirely. I did drop Spider-Man like 3 times during Brand New Day. That's probably the most fed up I was with the industry, I suppose. But no, there's never been a time where I've just like never read comics. Even out of like not so much interest, but just habit. I'm not that heroic, so yeah, I can't say there ever has been.
Very cool. What are you reading right now, and what do you think our listeners should check out?
Right now, I am reading Batman by James Tynion. I think he's doing a very solid job. I really like his stuff. Also, the Joker series came out, which also by Tynion, which, I mean, Joker's such a overexposed character, but this series is actually from Jim Gordon's perspective as he's hunting the Joker. That's been surprisingly very good. The current Chip Zdarsky Daredevil run, solid. Amazing Spider-Man by Nick Spencer, solid. I'm also reading and reviewing the current Nightwing run by Tom Taylor, and I'm reviewing that on BatmanUniverse.net. I've been enjoying the Immortal Hulk for a long time, for much of his run. The current run of Miles Morales Spider-Man, I'm digging quite a bit. I've been reading Savage Dragon for a while because it's getting kind of crazy. And is there anything else out of the top of my head? I was reading the Superman books for like the longest time. Like, ever since Rebirth, I read Superman for years. Mm-hmm. And I think I kind of slipped off near the end of the Bendis stuff. But I did like a lot of Rebirth era Superman. I think I'll leave it at that. I think those are the most consistent titles I've been reading right now.
Very cool, very cool. Heroes, heroines, anti-heroes, heroines, or villains. What character archetypes are your go-to reads?
I'm a simp for heroes. I do like heroes. I mean, especially now when the real world is far more stark, and when it comes to like good and evil, like the idea of like grade lines, that's not really, in my opinion, what's been going on lately. So true blue heroism is something I think is actually, a much more valued commodity than it was when I was growing up. And so if I could read something where the heroes are genuinely good people, because there's this political element to the superhero genre that can very much bleed into like more nefarious themes of like imperialism and fascism. I think that's a reality. So if these characters are just people trying to do their best and maybe not always even resorting to violence, I think that's fun to read. And I think that like some of the people like Peter Parker or Tim Drake or Dick Grayson, I think that those characters are you can follow them no matter what political era you're currently suffering from.
There you go. All right, bonus question. This is not on the list. Who is your favorite Robin and why?
Oh, Tim Drake. He is the Robin that was around when I was a kid. Early on, my brother and I were collecting like back issues of his series, like from like his first issue to like much of Chuck Dixon's stuff. I think that he's a really cool idea because he's not the traditional orphan character.
Mm-hmm.
I think that his intelligence has been kind of overrated because I kind of see him more as like the normal Robin rather than the genius Robin. Like he was somebody who knew his limits. He knew that he could not take on everybody, and his problem was never to leap into situations he couldn't get out of. His problem was always trying to think of the best ways of solutions while also trying to maintain a normal life. And the character has been in such flux, I would say, for like in about 10 years or longer. But he'll always be like my personal favorite Robin. Like Bruce and Dick are my favorite dynamic duo, but Tim is my favorite Robin.
Yeah, for me, I really enjoyed what Jurgens did with him in the Batman Beyond stuff when they brought Tim into the future. He was older.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the 2015 Batman Beyond series. It was right around the time they were doing Forever Evil, and the Dildo decided to kill off Nightwing again. Sure.
Again and again and again.
Thank God he's gone. Sorry, but thank God he's gone. Do you have a... Now, this is... Okay, I need to give you some backstory on this. Most everyone else knows this. Over on our other show that I used to do that I'm actually going to be bringing back, Toycast, I have a question because my father, at one point, said I was... At 6 years old, said I was too old for toys and sold them all. So I came up with a question. Do you have a parents got rid of my toys story? This question here is, do you have a parents get rid of my comics story?
No. I mean, I've been just an out and out comics fan all my life. That like the joke has been, oh, if you leave house one time, leave a room or whatever, we'll throw your stuff away. But they know they would to never do that, and they've never whatever like behavioral problems or whatever that I may have had when I was growing up, and it wasn't a lot. They never blamed anything on comic books. It was more just television. They were a lot more kind of protective of, or at least my mom was. But when it came down to comic books, they were never threatened by that. Especially my dad, because he read those.
Right. Yeah. If you could create any comic storyline, what would you want to create, and what characters would you want to create it with? Basically, if any comic book company, Marvel, DC, IDW, Image, whatever, just gave you the keys to the kingdom, what would you want to create?
I mean, I feel the responsible thing for me to do would be to write Batgirl, and by Batgirl I mean Cassandra Cain, the best one. Just because that character, even though she's kind of been kind of treated better recently, is somebody that I feel that she's like a very, very, very valuable character that the actual writers of the company don't understand. But I also don't want to write. I would like to write Superman, because Superman is also a character that I feel that a lot of has been easier for the company itself to disregard, and I feel that I don't think of Superman and think, gosh, that's a hard character to do. I don't really think that. I think that especially kind of reading the stuff in the 90s, you don't have to do that exactly, but there's a way to do Superman that can be very engaging and compelling for a modern audience, and I think that sometimes people just overthink these characters too much.
But you can take it, can't you, big man? What we have here is a rare opportunity for me to cut loose and show you just how powerful I really am.
Yeah, that's probably true. Luckily, we have Superman and Lois to, quench our palates.
Yeah, it's been solid.
So far.
I was waiting for them to shoot a job on that one.
What is the one piece of advice you would give the comics fandom?
I would say don't take everything too seriously, and that is me just shooting a machine gun in a glass house. But I've suffered. I would like to think that I've suffered greatly in being a fan of certain characters. Except for Daredevil, I guess he's had pretty consistent runs. But I really hated what happened to Spider-Man 2008. And I really disliked the New 52 and stuff. So I've experienced, a lot of eras of my favorite characters just being kind of not very good. And also for me to kind of feel alone in that, I think it's just been healthier for me to not worry about people attaching themselves to a version that I don't like, and kind of just like feel more secure in the version that I do like. I think I've mentioned this a little bit on my podcast, Questions We Don't Have Answers, but like, I've not always done that, but I think it's always been helpful to like not worry about stuff and think, you know what, I got these old stories, I got these old trades, and man, the storytelling is superior, so I can just be secure and understand that what I like is worth liking, and kind of return to that, because they can never be taken away.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was hoping for more New 52 Nightwing, but damn that dildo. So many times he was going to have a really, really good run. And the New 52 Nightwing run is by far my personal favorite because it's one of the only ones I've really read. But it's just one of those things where it's like, creators had this that they wanted to do, but oh wait, no, we got to kill him. So, sorry, can't do that. I really wanted to see Amusement Mile. Damn it. Anyway. Anyways, all right. Where can the people find you online, sir? And if you have anything you would like to promote, here's the time to do it.
Well, thank you very much for having me. My main gig is Questions We Don't Have Answers at qnoanswers.com, where it's a show that I do with my friend Harrison Shute. And it's basically it's a social political podcast, but we're both nerds. Like, I'm a comic book nerd, and he is a nerd on the other side of science fiction and Korean film. So a lot of times we end up talking about storytelling, but we talk about politics, we talk about societies, and like a lot of morality. But we also have kind of like a case study to kind of bounce our conversation on. Like, we've talked about like just recently, we did an episode on the dreaded Snyder Cut, and basically kind of like the idea of what that whole era meant for comic book media. We've discussed action movies. We had an episode on Black History Month. We had an episode on the Punisher logo as being appropriated by less than admirable people in the country. We talk about things that we like, we talk about things we don't like, and we talk about things that affect us in terms of forming opinions on morality and storytelling and the like. And I'm pretty proud of this. I'm very proud of this show. If you are interested in anything, I'm sure we have an episode for you because we've done almost 200 of these. So qnoanswers.com is my main gig. I am a content contributor for the Batman Universe.net. I've been doing that for about 10 years. Various commentaries and reviews and editorials on there. I am still a freelance writer for what is now DC Infinite. They've been reprinting my stuff. They've kind of gone through a big image makeover, so you can still find my work there. And yeah, I am on Twitter at DonoDMG1, where you can, I suppose, get in conversations or argue with me over there and see if I'm worth arguing with.
Oh, I'm sure you are. After 5 hours of Marvel, I'm pretty sure. Like, the whole time I was listening, and I didn't listen to the whole 5-hour Marvel episode of Earth2.net all at once. I listened, I think I finished it in 2 days. But every hour or so, I'm like, hey, I need to tell these people this kind of thing. It's like, oh, no, well, not in a, like, oh, I agree with this, or oh, this, or oh, this, or oh, come on, you really can't mean you think that. Like, I talk to my phone a lot. I scream at my phone a lot when I'm listening to podcasts because I'm like, but it should be this, not that.
Anyway. I'm going there right now.
You're going where?
Did you comment on the forum thread?
No, I can't get into the forums. We'll have to talk about that off air.
Oh yeah.
All right. I am at TF2 and Mike on Twitter. You can follow at the Pullbag on Twitter as well. All the other information is in the outro. Coming up next here inside the Pullbag. What's coming up next? I don't even know. It's my own show, and I don't know what I have planned. Of course, I plan like a year in advance, so you never know. Coming up next, we've got 409.5. This is Batman White Knight Von Freeze with Edward and Kendra Hale, along with myself. We talked about that from Sean Gordon Murphy, I guess I should say. And yeah, make your great escape into comics, folks, and we will catch you next time here inside the Pull Bag.
Give me a triple. Now.
You've just heard the latest episode of The Pull Bag, the GCRN's first comic review and discussion podcast. There are several ways to get in touch with us and leave feedback for the show. You can visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can comment on the episode and all of our different podcasts. You can rate and leave a review for the show on iTunes. Be sure to leave us feedback. Become a fan of us on Facebook, facebook.com/thepullbag. Send us an email, feedback at geekcastradio.com. Follow us on Twitter at thepullbag and at geekcastradio. So until next time, make your great escape into comics and unleash the geek in you.
Not again. It gets worse every time he doesn't show.
Then this time, he will.
Good evening, Commissioner. Sorry I'm late.